Dominic Giannini, Australian Associated Press. Thank you both for appearing here today. On the Solomon Islands relationship, there has been some sort of breakdown that has led to this security treaty. So to both of you, how do we fix this? And so to the government side, how has this been allowed to happen given that you tout our aid levels and our climate commitments? And to the opposition side, apart from sending a foreign minister over, what specifically will you do given that our aid commitments at the moment aren't or can't seem to match China's? And with the elephant in the room being corruption, will the parties take the same stance as China's cyber attacks by calling it out as a deterrence if corruption were to be discovered in the Solomon Islands?
Well, I'm happy to go first if you'd like. Yeah, we did put out quite a detailed response or detailed policy on the Pacific, precisely because we thought it was important in this debate, given the salience to our national interest, for people to see what the alternative government wanted to do in relation to the Pacific, to ensure we are the partner of choice in the Pacific, to ensure that the Pacific family is more than just words. Now, what we've said is this package is about leveraging our strengths. I can take you through all the details, but there are a few highlights which I think matter in addition to the additional ODA. One is doubling the Pacific Maritime air surveillance program. The EEZ of Pacific nations is, I think, almost 3 times the size of Australia, possibly more. So this is, and this is a key interest for them. This is about illegal fishing. It is about protecting their fisheries, which is a source of resources as well as a source of protein. We want to deliver an Indo-Pacific broadcasting strategy because I think you need voices in the region. And I think it was short-sighted for the government's cuts to the ABC, which had the effect of ending a whole range of services into the Pacific. And then, of course, the labour schemes. So improving the labour mobility schemes, enabling people for the longer-term scheme to bring their families, and the visa category that I described. That is about leveraging our proximity and access to our labour market, because the people-to-people ties are a key way in which we ensure we are genuinely part of the Pacific family.
Dominic, I don't agree with all of the premise of your question, because I think it is oversimplifying what is a very complex set of circumstances, not just in a bilateral sense, but more broadly. And to the question of relationships on a basis of foreign minister to foreign minister, my relationship with, for example, Foreign Minister Manelli, who has just briefed informally members of the Pacific Island Forum from Suva on these matters, I think on Wednesday of this week, is a very strong one. But we must continue to make the contribution that we do to the security and the stability of our region that maintains the resilience of economies. That is why we are making a contribution of over $20 million in terms of budget support to the Solomon Islands. It's why we've delivered over 500,000 vaccines to the Solomon Islands of 1 million, and will continue to do so, including the health security that comes with that, the end-to-end support. It is essential that we continue to grow that, and that is literally what the Pacific Step Up has been doing. But countries ultimately, and it would be very disturbing if we were not prepared to acknowledge this in Australia. Countries will ultimately make sovereign decisions for their own reasons that occasionally we don't and can't change and can't influence. And that is what respect is about, frankly, with partners as well. Can I say in relation to Labor's plan, I see a lot of it drawn from existing programs, a whole-of-government approach like the Office of the Pacific Step Up. We already train defence and security personnel from the Pacific. We strongly fund the Pacific Maritime Security Program, and it would be refunded when it is due to be refunded in a future budget,
proposing to double it, actually,
which would represent a similar commitment to the opposition. position.
That's not right.
But labour mobility is a really interesting question here, because it is about people-to-people links in many ways. And what Labor's announcement does is completely muddy the waters on labour mobility. There was no consultation from Labor with the NFF and the Fresh Produce Alliance. They've both said that publicly. It's confusing for them and it's confusing for sending countries. And what happens to the countries that have already, like Vietnam, agreed to participate in the ag visa, which they appear to have scrapped, which Indonesia and Thailand and other countries are engaged on? I don't know.
Senator Payne went over time.
Well, first, we don't, tear up agreements. So obviously that's not been announced, the MOU with Vietnam, but if you've actually managed to get an MOU for an ag visa that not one visa has been issued for, an incoming government would respect it. But I remember going to the Pacific with Julie Bishop. And I remember the clear message that she understood and that was given to us, that the Pacific labour schemes were one of our key ways to engage. It was one of our key diplomatic strengths, central to our relationships. And she stood up against Barnaby Joyce and the National Party, against the sort of opening of an agricultural visa beyond the Pacific, because she understood how important this was diplomatically, as well as the importance of ensuring we have agricultural labour. So it is disappointing to me that you would go down that route when you understand, as Foreign Minister, this is one of our key strengths. It has been a key strength that was understood by Ms Bishop and past governments, and it will be a key strength if we are elected on the 21st of March.
And we will absolutely maintain that key strength, but we also have a commitment to growing Australia's agricultural sector to $100 billion by 2030, which doesn't appear to be supported.
Not one visa in your ag visa. And you're having an argument on social media with David Littleproud telling everybody the policy is going to lead to permanency, which isn't the case in terms of answers and estimates. I mean, it is another inconsistency.
Senators, we're now getting short of time, so I'm going to cut you both off there.